In this week's episode of the LA Business Podcast, we talk about spices, how the owner of a spice company competes with some of the largest spice brands in the world and juggles the challenges of multiple channels distributing spice across retail, Amazon, and direct to consumer through their website. Let's jump right into this week's episode of the LA Business Podcast. Welcome to the LA Business Podcast, your destination to hear stories of how businesses grow and scale. I'm Robert Brill, CEO of Brill Media and the host of this podcast. Now, let's jump right into this week's interview. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the LA Business Podcast. Today our guest is Brett Cramer. Brett is a co-founder and president of the Spice Lab. The Spice Lab was developed to encourage creative cooking and to make meals more flavorful. They specialize in providing premium organic spices and custom seasoning blends. Well, that sounds fantastic. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Brett, and how did you get into this business? It sounds so delicious.
It was a huge mistake.
Okay.
I'm a .com guy. I've been in computers all my life. Started in high school, selling them out of the trunk of my car, and in the 80s. And then I had a internet company in South Florida here. We did a bunch with video streaming. We invented the video banner ad. The first time I ever put a video in a Google serverable ad.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, hold on, let's talk about that because we do ad buying, and that is very interesting to us.
Yeah. This is back in late 90s, and I was the one doing all the encoding and everything. Because I'm a very technical person, and we did stuff for Citibank, all kinds of crazy things. And I said, wait a second now, if I can encode this really small, a 120 by 60 or whatever it was, because the standard banner ads at the time were 60 tall by 480 or 420, whatever the size was at the time. And I says, can we serve this? They're like, it can't be done because you can't serve code and stuff like that. Well, my little programmer hacker guy, figured it out, and we did it about a week later. We figured out how to get it to serve. We could actually serve ads through Google, 2 or 3 of the other networks at the time, which are all gone now. But and it actually worked. So we take videos, encode them, obviously really small, so they're very light also.
Sure.
And the banner ad would pop up and the video would start playing. So we did some really, really cool stuff with that. We did something called the Matrix Player at Streaming Media West. It's a whole nother hour-long conversation. You and I can talk offline whenever, and I get how I was doing stuff back then, and had patents pending on it for 9 years, and what YouTube is just now getting around to doing, inserting content in the middle of streams and popping up interstitials and all kinds of stuff we were doing in 2000. So it was crazy time. So I was in the computer business doing video streaming, what have you, in early 20 whatever it was after 9/11, so it'd be 2002, 2003. Guy came to me with this thing, and he says, hey, I got this site here, I want to buy it, whatever it was. And I looked at it and go, Jesus, it takes 2.5, 3, 4, it takes 3 minutes, 4 minutes to load the homepage. Who'd ever want to go to a site that takes 4 minutes to load? Then I said to myself instantly, I says, well, wait a second now, if people are waiting 4 minutes to get on the homepage, there must be something there.
Right.
Long story short, the other guy, was too busy trying to scam people and didn't want anything to do with a real site. I took it over, FedEx the servers down here to Fort Lauderdale, put in, had 5 T1 lines. It was running off a dual DSL line up in Minnesota at the time. And the short version we bring down here, and I started using my American Express card because I didn't have 10 nickels to rub together at the time we did this.
Sure.
In the middle of the post 2001, 2002, 2003, recession and stuff. And I think it would American Express $40,000. And when I flipped the switch on the site, I was charging the models and the photographers to set up portfolios. And everybody says it was a free site. That nobody's ever going to pay you to do this because it's been free for 10 years. And I said, well, it's not free anymore. And I'm going to start charging. Short version is the first day we did $400,000 in signups the first day.
For a model like representation site.
If you ever saw anything called Facebook, and I could show you what I was doing in middle 2000s, you can kind of see where the idea of Facebook came from our website at the time.
What site was that?
It was called One Model Place. It's still online. It's
Mhm.
nowhere near what it was by any means.
Mhm.
The One Model Place, and we could tag pictures. We could have group. I could go on the site and find all the pictures I like, put them in a gallery, and
Mhm.
then the gallery could be public or private. So people go see my gallery, all my famous. I love landscapes. It was a glamour modeling site too, but
Mhm.
we had some of the best landscape photographers in the world up there. And Leonard Nimoy was on our site. The guy that shoots all the nude people, that he gets 500 nude people in the town center. He was on our website. So we had a bunch of famous people. A bunch of Miss Americas came from our website. So
Nice.
it was a good little thing. And the stuff we
And
were
how does
doing.
that lead to spice.com?
Well, a guy made me an offer on the site. Let's see, it was before 2000, it was about 2007, I guess it was 2008. For $10 million for all the international rights, because he wanted to do something in Asia. He owned a big site in Asia. He was
Mhm.
invested in Alibaba and stuff like that. The guy was, kind of a crazy guy. And $10 million for half the site, U.S. rights, and all the international rights. And I said,
Mhm.
I don't know. I think this thing's going to become something. Long story short, 2 years later, I sold it for substantially less, but it was in the middle of 2009 or whatever it was, when the world was on fire, and you
Right.
couldn't get a millionaire couldn't get a mortgage for $50. And
Right.
that's a small side note. That, I sold the company for a lot of, not a lot of money, a lot less than I got before, but I sold the company having a stash of cash, and I want to, buy a 450, $500,000 house, and I got turned down by, Chase Bank. And I go, what do you mean? You've been in my bank all this long. He goes, yeah, but you don't have a job now. I'm like, I got $3 million of cash in the bank. I
I
need a job.
sold.
But they wouldn't give it to any. It was like they wouldn't give money to anybody at the time. So
Right.
I sold the business. The guy put this guy in charge of the site locally. He was a German guy that sold Amazon Germany to Jeff Bezos, back in the day, and he was worth at the time about 1.2 billion. The And he put this guy in charge of the site, from the States. And this guy
Mhm.
he never asked me one question in 6 months. He never asked me the why. Why do people paying you $300 a year to be on the site? Why are people paying you, $59.95 a year? Why are they paying you, $10 a month to be on the site? And I was literally ordering food and picking up his dry cleaning for him for six
Yep.
months. I got paid, whatever it is, it's your company, your site. You want to drive it off the cliff, knock yourself out. And in 1 year, the site was a very small shell of what it was. That said, I needed Christmas presents in the fall of 12 years ago. We
Mhm.
started the actual business literally Thanksgiving weekend, uh, 12 years ago. Where
How do you get into the spice business?
Well, because
Like
I had the salts, and I
okay.
love cooking. I love salts, and I had these. I want to buy these salts, and I still want to buy these salts for myself, because I can't find them anywhere. What are you gonna do? They're 5-pound bags. I said, well, I'll give them as Christmas presents. The stuff I don't need. Wife's like, she's at the time like 6-7 months pregnant. She goes, I don't care what you do, just leave me alone. I'm like, sure, okay. So I bought in 12 bags of salt, and uh, I get them in here. She goes, well, how are you going to give them out? Little bags. She's an interior designer. She goes, no chance in hell you giving little bags of salt with my name on them. It's just not going to happen. You got to make them look good. So what we did was, we did this.
Okay.
This is the kit we did. So
Ooh.
I ended up making a handful of these for my friends.
Mhm.
And everybody saw them, wanted to buy them. I put them on Amazon Thanksgiving weekend, 12 years ago. And
Mhm.
I show up to work on Monday, and we had like 50 or 60 orders for them. I'm like, what do you mean people are buying this? Are you crazy? I mean, who knew, right? Because I thought it was cute. I didn't think it was, necessarily a real product or anything. Just I put them up for my friends. Well, it never stopped. So far, now we don't sell many now because they're mostly high-end, gourmet gifts. But
Mhm.
we've sold, I think, 175,000 different versions of this kit in the last 12 years. So
Amazing.
so people like them, and they work really well at Christmas, for Christmas presents and stuff like that, and gifts. And so then in February, March, we closed the business. My son was born in the hospital, literally, at 8 o'clock in the morning. At 9:30, I'm at the nurse's station. They go, "Do you have a fax machine?" They go, "Yeah." Okay, so I call the fax machine. HSBC Bank sends over the paperwork. I sign it. They wire transfer me over the money for the previous business. I split it with the partner and a couple of employees. I gave them some stuff for it, and now I had to work for this guy for 6 months, and I'm unemployed. But what happened was I started selling this in Christmas, so people by February, March started saying, "Hey, do you have refills on those
Do you have any
salts?"
more?
Of course I do. Well, do you have this kind of salt? Of course I do. It's one of those things where you're too stupid to say no. And before you know it, I had 160 kinds of salt. I had more salt than anybody in the United States or world for sale in one place. And all this high end stuff I was bringing from all kinds of weird, places, and camels were bringing across the desert. I mean, crazy shit I was bringing in, which was great when you're working out of your in Florida, we don't have basements, but your basement on a kitchen table,
Mhm.
it's not necessarily scalable, and it's not retailable. So we started doing, my wife and I, it's all so much has to do with her because she's an interior designer. She doesn't, you see all the stuff behind us here. All this is, all the products we have, and stuff is always beautiful. And so we started going to the gift shows. We went to natural product show. We went to fancy food show. We went to Atlanta Gift Mart, the Texas Gift Mart, gift basket shows. The first 3 years, we were doing 16 shows a year. So every 3 weeks, 2.5, 3 weeks on average, we're at a trade show. I
Mm.
mean, I
All over the world? Like, are you
United States, in the U.S., but I mean, it was just, because we're
but
trying
they're
different
bringing
things.
you products from all over the world
Yeah, I was bringing them in from all over the world, but we were
Mhm.
doing these
In the
shows,
US.
and by the
So,
shows,
how did you get sorry, Brett, how did you get spices.com? Like, that's such a great domain.
that's a second story. So I'll get to that one quick thing. So by doing the shows, I would always talk to the people. And every show you talk to, 10, 20, 30, 100, 200 people, whatever it was, that was
Mhm.
worth talking to. And you always listen to them, and you figure out, and very quickly you have to take other people's feedback. And you always have the crazy people and the not crazy people and whatever it is. Um, and that's how we got kind of figured out what products to come up with and what to do with it and what have you, and how to kind of build the business into something that went from a gift to little French jars, which are little glass jars that you see in your spice cabinet, to stuff like that. And one thing leads to another, and whatever. This guy called me up, who owns spices.com, quite a few years ago, and he wanted $500,000 for the domain name. I'm like, no chance in hell. I mean, it's not worth that.
Yeah.
He goes, "Well, McCormick wants to buy it." And I says, "Well, great, let them buy it then. They got that kind of money." Well, the trouble with the big corporation is it's like a gigantic, battleship.
Right.
They're very good when they're going in one direction, but to get a board of directors together, worry about spending 500 grand is like asking you, "Can I borrow you $10?" It's like, well, I got to talk to 6 people to lend you $10, because $500,000 from McCormick's is like you lending me $10.
Right, right, right.
So, and it goes on for about 2 years with this guy, 2.5 years. And long story short, the guy he was a broker. The guy that actually owned the domain name needed to put his kid in school, and he needed money to, he's going to medical school, whatever else. And he needed, I think it was like $80,000 or something. I says, here, done. I'll take it. Because the
Wow.
domain name as a placeholder to do what we're doing with it. And once we start growing this business more, to actually use it as the de facto place to learn about all the spices and stuff, the name is priceless. I mean, so it was one of those things where I got real lucky, and thanks to big business can't making decisions, I ended up with something really good. I was offered since then 500 grand for the domain name, and I says, no, it's not worth it.
How much were you offered?
500.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, when the people turned it down originally, finally decided they wanted. I won't say who it was, but he offered it to 3 or 4 companies, and they wanted to buy it because, again, 500 grand is not even what it costs to put a commercial on for 10 seconds on the Super Bowl. So,
Yeah.
you know,
The SEO value for this
it's a
is
lot of money for you and me. For them, when they spend 3 or 5 million, whatever it is, for a 30-second spot nowadays, is
right.
it's 3 seconds worth of airtime or something. They don't care.
I think, what's interesting to me is your background in media and being able
Compute, yeah,
to, like, understand how big corporations work is such an asset. That's one of the reasons we're successful, is because we
yeah,
understand how big corporations work, and we can get small and mid-sized companies the same types of advertising tactics, opportunities, etc. It's interesting, like, the advertising community really prepares people for a wide variety of different, like, jobs, like real
yeah,
estate, franchise ownership, sales, entrepreneurship. There's a ton of things that you learn from being in the advertising community, and I'm always astounded to see like just how far the reaches are for people who at some point were in the publishing or advertising world.
Well, before we were doing One Model Place, like I said, we were doing the banner ads and stuff. We worked stuff for Foot Cone and Belding, which was a big agency at the time. I think we got
FCB.
gobbled up. Yeah, FCB. And
Yeah.
we did a ton of stuff for FCB Latin America. We did stuff for Microsoft. Microsoft wrote out streaming media
Mhm.
stuff. We were the ones they hired in Orlando South to train everybody. That was a really good gig. And we were in like Telemundo. We're everywhere. Anybody who wanted to stream anything, we were in there setting up servers and doing all the stuff for them. So we were a digital agency at the time. We were one of the high-end digital agencies. My biggest trouble was location
Mhm.
for internet stuff. And I was stuck in beautiful Fort Lauderdale, and I couldn't find a VC, a private equity guy, or anybody could even spell computer,
Sure.
more or less know what I was doing or understand the high level we were doing it at.
Yeah.
And so my biggest mistake in life was not moving the company to San Jose. I would trip over a bar at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd find more money there than I would here.
Right. So let's talk about your business, right? Like, when would you say, regardless of the year, I guess my question is like, what are the key factors to your growth? Like, is around 2009, 2010 when you're really
Yeah.
focused on the Spice Lab?
We started then, and it was just very very natural, kind of one thing leading to other people saying, hey, can you do this, um, Home Goods came up to me at one of the trade shows. It was either in Dallas or Atlanta Gift Mart or whatever it was, and they go, hey, we like your stuff. And my only thing I knew from Home Goods at the time was my grandmother used to shop there for all the expired food. And I'm like, well, I don't have any expired food. We pack everything in order and everything else. Well, we don't do that anymore. We buy everything new. Oh, yeah. What do you want to buy? Well, we have, at the time it was like 1,800 stores, whatever it was. You would buy, 800 cases of this, and this. And it was, wait a second. You want 800 cases at a time, not two? So it was like, okay, that's a pretty good start. So we started doing the stuff for Home Goods. Then we got TJ Maxx, and then we started doing stuff for Ross. And about 6 years ago, we're probably doing $3 million a year in discount retail stuff,
Mm.
which was a nice little niche business. The problem is the way that the retailers buy from you and stuff like that. It's very hard to be a growing business, past that. But we took that, parlayed it in other stuff. What really jump started us was I went to Costco, found me at one of these little regional shows and says, we want you to carry your stuff. And I says, great, no problem. Well, we're Costco. We need to be HACCP certified. I go, that sounds like a disease. What's HACCP certified? He goes, well, it's control points, everything else. Here, let me send over a document. It's not that bad. Let me send
Right.
the document over. It comes over as a 45-page document with all, it's like, holy crap. What's on
Right.
this?
Like, that's not what you want to be spending your time doing.
It's like, you got to be kidding me, I'm like, but everybody told me I couldn't pack my own stuff, and I built my own facility. Everybody told me I couldn't do this. I said, well, let me figure this out. So the buyer would call me up, and he's from Atlanta, southern accent. He goes, Brett, you ready for the order yet? And I'll go, no, I'm not. I haven't done the hassle thing because I'm not ready for that yet. I got to make sure everything's working and everything else. So every month the guy would call me for about 7 months in a row. And about the 7th month, he goes, Brett, I'm a very patient man, but I'm not that patient. I need this, hassle thing to work. I'm like, trust me, we already hired a consultant. He's in here already, told us kind of what to do. And we signed up for our audit, which is like $3,000 or $4,000. And the guy comes down there and writes you off all the stuff and whatever it is. And he goes, don't worry, Brett, you're going to fail. 90% of people that get audited fail the first audit, whatever it is. I'm like, oh, that's encouraging to know, right? Well, don't worry if you fail, you pack in salt. So, you do the corrective actions and fix whatever we find wrong. And, you fix it in 60 or 90 days and we're good to go. I'm like, okay, fair enough. So the HACCP guy comes down there and does an audit, and we get a 94 or 5 on the audit the first year. And he goes, Brett, you got a 95 in this audit. You held me up for 7-8 months now, and you got a 95 in this audit. What the heck are you thinking? I'm like, well, we under promise and over deliver because we make sure we actually, don't want to produce a crappy product for Costco. So he starts buying our big grinders for us, which we have some on the shelf over there.
Mm-hmm.
So we get the grinders in there and we do a yearly review. So we go up to Atlanta and I bring this big 5-pound thing of salt, which I have one on the shelf here somewhere too. We have Costco. And he goes, I show him the different things and the 5 pounds of salt. He goes, I'll take the dill seasoning for the salmon department of this. And he goes, Brett, nobody buys 5 pounds of salt. I'm like, okay, whatever. So we go back the second year, and I had the 5 pounds of salt there, a bunch of other stuff. And he goes, Brett, nobody buys that 5 pounds of salt. I says, you're wrong. I'm selling it on Amazon, and we're selling, 2-pound bags, and we're selling, 500 of them a day or something like that. He goes, yeah, but, my customer doesn't know what that pink stuff is. They're not going to buy it. I go back to third year now. So I've been with Costco for about 4 years, 3.5 years because of the grinder project. So I go back to Costco the third time to Atlanta, a year later. And the only thing on the counter is a 5-pound tub of salt. All the other stuff's in bags and you can't see it. He goes, Brett, I told you 2 other times, and I'm a patient man, but nobody buys 5 pounds of salt. I go, Cam, I'm not leaving here, and I'm not showing you the other stuff until you give me an order for the salt. And I don't care if it's 5 stores, and if it doesn't sell, in 2 weeks, rip the PO up. I never saw it before, and burn the salt in the parking lot. I don't care. Just give me a shot.
Right.
And he goes, Brett, that one doesn't work for Costco. We don't do that. I'm like, oh, Christ. He goes, Brett, we give you a PO. It's gold. We don't sell a jar of it. We're going to pay you for the PO. Mm-hmm. He goes, you're not going to show me the stuff yet, are you? I go, no. He goes, okay, give me the goddamn 5 pallets and let's move on with this. So, I sold them 5 pallets of salt.
Yeah.
It takes us a while to order the jars in because, it's 334 jars on a pallet or whatever it is. So we order the jars, and whenever we pack the stuff, send it out to Costco, the local distribution center here in West Palm Beach, and they put it in the 5 stores. I get a call literally like 3 days later. Brett, we got a real problem. I'm like, what is it now? He goes, I'm out of salt. I need 55 pallets. I need 55 pallets.
And this is all Himalayan salt.
And I go, Cam, it don't work like that.
So data. So you're
salt doesn't grow on trees. Okay,
so
we have to start
the data.
Yeah, we start rolling out the program. So we started adding 5 stores every 2 weeks to the program until I could order enough salt in Pakistan, because it takes 120 days from the time you actually order the salt before you even get it, not counting how long it takes to pack it. So long story short, within 4 months, we rolled out the entire program. We're in all 54, 55 stores, including the Puerto Rico stores down here for Costco. Mm-hmm. Number 1 selling item ever in the spice aisle is my product.
Amazing.
Well, the other Costco see it, they want to take it on, and before you know it, we started ramping up another division, then another division, then another. So we're in 5 divisions of Costco, and corporate says, Brett, we're going to private label this and probably screw you over on that deal, because our private label guy has so much more distribution than you do, so you're going to lose that product. I'm like, great. So we went from 0 sales to Costco. We're doing the grinders for them, but to a $4 million item, $5 million item in less than a year. And then they private label it, because when things hit 5 million, they like to private label things. And they, we kept the Florida division, which is, thank God, because we have such a great relationship with Costco, Florida and stuff like that. We have a good relationship with Costco out there. And I understand why they did it, because the cost of shipping, when you're shipping full trucks of my product, and not mine because it's their product now, but the salt and 10 other items to one DC versus me shipping 3 pallets of salt is so much less. And, it is what it is. And, so at that point, I was doing about 95% of my business was pink salt. And I says, this is about 3 years ago now, a little bit over 3 years, 3.5 years ago now. And I says, that's really bad, because, pink salt's a commodity. We want to come in something that's not. So
and it's not diversified. I mean, that's a big
exactly real problem. Business, don't have everything in one business there. It's my box guy told me he found some more boxes.
So how do you diversify? How do you diversify your business?
I spent, again, we just lost Costco and, $5 million a year worth of revenue and stuff like that. So I started using my line of credit. I started moving to the warehouse we're in now, which is a bigger warehouse like that. In fact, we moved in when we still had the Costco job, and then we lost it by the time we moved in, because it was one of those things. So now I figured, what do I do? So I hired a full-time chef that knew how to blend. Her and I work together, and everything you see on the shelf here. We have right now probably, I think, like 300 or 400 recipes for different spice blends we do for people, our brand, private label, custom stuff we do, and stuff like that. So immediately I did that, and I spent about $2 million in about a year and a half to reinvent the company. And I did a complete reinvention of the company, and we doubled the business last year. We're up about, I think, 30% this year. And for my bankers, because when you grow so fast, you run out of growth capital real fast is the problem. Because, you go from a, $12 million business to a $20 million business, and we already have $15 million worth of pretty much new business already on the table for upcoming 12 months. So
Yeah.
I'm going from, 20 to $35 million business that takes a lot of, bananas to grow that. So, working with the banks and stuff like that to do that. But it was all because I literally bet everything, and I knew this is what we want to do. And I knew what the trends are going to be. And part of I think when you said doing this is you want to know the trends and why we can compete against McCormick. Well, McCormick makes more spice in 30 minutes than I do in a lifetime because, they have production facilities all across the world. Somebody told me some statistic. It's like 75% of all the retail spice sold in this country is McCormick or McCormick brands. Some crazy number. It's just crazy number stuff. So you're never going to compete with McCormick packing standard stuff in standard jars or packing some of their brands that they bought and stuff like that. You're crazy. It's just like all these EV car companies. Hey, I want to be the next Tesla. Well, you got to make the batteries and the car and everything else. And these other guys are just buying their stuff from everybody else. It's not the same thing. So what you got to do is you got to work the edges and find out, McCormick is, like I said before, an aircraft carrier. I wish I was their business, don't get me wrong. But that said, they don't need to be super nimble, and they're not by any means. It takes them a year, 2 years, 3 years to, come up with a new plan or change things around or whatever it is. And most big businesses, that's where Microsoft, same thing. These big companies are that way. And by doing that also, they grow by acquisition because it's cheaper for them. Coca-Cola does this all the time, where they go buy a brand versus inventing their own. They pay $1 billion, something they could have made for $100 million, but they got to make 20 of them themselves to find the one or two worth a damn versus just spending the $1 billion on the one that they know is already a winner.
Sure.
And so McCormick's is that way. They bought the mustard company, they bought the hot sauce company, they bought they buy all kinds of these niche brands you see are owned by McCormick, Lowry's years ago and stuff like that. So you're not going to compete on that. So what we do is we come up with clean label. You read our jars, there's everything on there you can pronounce. We come up with an organic spice line that is in very high-end jars. If you go to spices.com website, you can see the different products we have. And anybody who's interested at all should go there and see what we're doing. You understand our sensibilities and stuff. You come up with brands that are super flavorful and they're multi-purpose things. We use the same seasoning in 5 or 6 different names sometimes for different customers for different products they're doing. Everything from a slaw mix to pork chop seasoning, because it's a good seasoning, and you don't want to put on the jar only good for pork chops, because a lot of things we develop.
Right.
Chef Fiona, who's our corporate chef here, she's from California. She's classically trained. When we interviewed chefs, I had chefs in here that were just doing crazy stuff. The trouble is chefs are artistes, and I love a good art. Art Basel was a week or two ago down here in Miami. I love art, don't get me wrong. The trouble with artistes is they do something different every single time.
Right. You need that right blend of like a person who is disciplined enough to have
Pastry
the
chef
business
is what
acumen.
you want a pastry chef, because with pastry, you can't go, well, let me put in an extra half a cup of flour today, or less of butter, or put in triple the vanilla. No, you have a recipe. Once the recipe works, it's precise, and we do everything in grams, and we scale it up our gigantic blenders in the back and stuff like that. I will email me later. I'll send you a link to a video we did here too, which is not on the website, but I'll send it to you, and any of your viewers can watch it. And it's a drone footage of the factory and everything we have, which is just amazing. And you can kind of get a feel for what we're doing here. But
Brett, go ahead. Sorry.
I told you I talk too much sometimes.
It's okay.
Okay. So we have to look at what these companies are not doing and find niches in their market space is what we do, or the product line. And when we talk to our customers, McCormick sends in brokers and sales reps, and most of all the big companies, CPG, consumer product group companies do that. They hire rep firms to go in there and they go, hey, I got a new whatever it is, new zero soda, whatever it is. I'm not trying to advertise for good stuff though, by the way, but whatever it is, how many do you want? Or, well, what is it? Well, I don't know. It's new zero soda, and that's
right.
The extent of what they know. They could be selling soda today, this tomorrow, this the next day. They're just sales guys. They don't ask the customer the why. There's a great book out there about the why, and I'm so bad with names, I can't remember who wrote it. But
Simon Sinek.
That's it. Oh my God. Always ask why. Right. Why do you want this? Well, why does your customer think they want this? What are they going to use it for? How are they going to use it? And you start asking these questions. So by the time you get done, you say, one of our customers wants a spice right now. And after the research, and from what I said, we call them back, says, hey, I'll get this for you it's not going to sell. I mean, it was a New Mexico chili pepper, and if you're in the Southwest, it sells really well. If
Mhm.
you're anywhere besides the Southwest, it's not going to sell because it's expensive and
Ah,
nobody knows what it is. Why am I paying $7 a jar for Southwest chili powder or seasoning? Now it's going to come up around maybe 3 years from now when it gets enough buzz and PR nationally and stuff. But a friend of mine sells it right now, and he goes and he's in a bunch of big box stores with it and stuff like that. And he
mhm.
says, Brett, we're going to pull it out of everywhere but the Southwest next year because it just doesn't sell. So I said, okay. So we go back to the customer and says, here's the deal, and this is the why it doesn't sell and why I don't want to sell it to you, because the buyers, this company went from one product of ours less than 2 years ago that they have 65 items private label in their grocery store right now. This stuff's beautiful. We won awards for. We won the best looking private label award this year on this product line we do for them and stuff like that. And they want to add a bunch more stuff. They're always adding this weird stuff to the product line, and they may have a chance to sell it because they do a lot of ethnic spices and weird stuff
Mhm.
we're doing for them. Not just oregano, and it may work for them, but generally speaking, we won't tell them why it probably won't, and
Right.
that way there's no misunderstanding. We're not just to sell them. I'd rather not sell them two or three things than sell them stuff and have crappy performing things on their shelf.
Let's talk a little bit. What I want to understand a little bit is, you have a presence on Amazon.
Yeah,
Do you have a direct to consumer business through your website? It looks like you do. You sell in across distribution channels and stores, and you're a white label provider.
yeah,
That's really
yeah, yeah, basically, yeah.
so
You know,
that's
we,
so
we,
that's really interesting. How do you tell us about the variety of things you're doing to propel your business? And I don't mean what you're doing to create the spices, like the product is the product.
yeah.
That's the genius there. How do you make sure that people are buying the products that you're creating?
Um, you know, you gotta you got to see what the trends are out there. And, the last thing we do is make stuff that nobody wants. It's like,
Mhm,
well, nobody wants it. It has to be clean label. It has to be as little allergens as possible, or make sure you don't do any cross contamination in your facility. We spend a ton of money on. We're fully SQF certified facility, safe quality foods. It's the highest level of certification. We spend, they every time I walk out of those swabbing equipment for allergies or or bacteria or something, whatever. The safety department's always swabbing something. It's like I pay for those, by the way.
mhm,
Yeah, so it's one of those things. So you gotta educate our customer. Our typical sales cycle is probably about a year on stuff, which is actually not too bad. Some items is longer, some items is shorter, but we've been pollinating the market space for about 4 years, since I started reinventing the business when we did salt. My national sales manager literally was selling nothing on the grocery line at all, before 2 years ago. We,
mhm,
we really didn't do grocery stuff at all. We didn't do really private label stuff at all and stuff like that. But we were out there pollinating the people and says, this is who we are. This is what we're doing. This is what our philosophy is. And if you're looking for great quality stuff, we don't buy crappy spices. We bring all of our stuff in from the Northeast. We don't buy stuff locally because the quality of a couple of vendors down here is not up to our specifications. We make sure we always get the oil content high in the stuff. So when people open up our jars, it's as good as anything on the market can be in a commercial environment.
mm.
Um,
So
you know,
when you talk about the different channels, who handles, like, do you do advertising and marketing for the different channels that you have? Like,
um, we go to
how
the
does that
private
work?
label show. We go. There's 3 or 4 good shows where we're until 2 years ago. Fancy food shows twice a year. It was in San Francisco. They just moved it to Vegas. My guess is it's in February, first week in February. I'm pretty sure they're going to cancel it. The
Mhm,
the PLMA show, Private Label Manufacturing Association, redid their show from the last 2 years. It was going to be in first week in January. We just got a letter literally yesterday or this morning saying they canceled the show because of the new COVIDs. I mean, great.
mhm,
And I just spent 50 grand on a new booth. So I guess I have
mhm.
nowhere to put it now. So
Oof.
we do the three national shows: Private Label Manufacturing Association, the two fancy food shows, and we dabble every couple years in the natural products show
Mhm,
with the people who. There's one in California in Anaheim, and there's one in Baltimore every year. It was
mhm,
every year. And between those 5 shows, 6 shows, you get a pretty good idea of everybody who's anybody in the food business and all the categories goes to those shows. And either direct, they want branded product where it says the Spice Lab on it, or they want private label product where it wants, whatever on it, and they find you there at the shows. And from the last PLMA show we did, which was literally like a weeks before they shut the world down, in January of a couple of years ago, we're still getting all kinds of great leads, and people are calling us up. The other thing we get a lot of calls from is that with we have on-time delivery. We under promise and over deliver. So a lot of these big companies, no names mentioned, you'd walk in the grocery store at the spice section and you would see 20, 30, 40% out of stock on these items.
Mm-hmm.
And that really pissed off the grocery people, because that store shelf has to generate so much money per linear foot. Otherwise, they don't want the product.
Mm-hmm.
And well, it's COVID, everything. Well, that's a story, but then why do other people have the same thing?
Mm-hmm.
Because the companies making the private label or making the labeled brand could make more money in different formats at other venues. So that's who they were. I mean, if you're a company and you have a limited amount of stuff and over demand, you're not going to make it for the guy you're making the least for. You're going to make it for the guy you're making the most for. And that's how these big businesses think. Well, we thought, hey, we're going to go to the dance with who brought us to the dance. It's an old Southern thing. You invite the girl to the dance, you better dance with that girl at the dance. And we're not trying to, the customers that we have is who we supported. We turned down a lot of business in the last, year or so, because I couldn't get enough employees. Until recently, we finally been able to hire people the last couple of months. But until the last couple of months, we had a hard time getting employees. So we didn't want to take on any new business. So we really limited the new business. We took on more items for the existing customers. So we grew our existing customers. The same ones, just grew, the item count and stuff like that dramatically for who we have. And we weren't out
and how do you
shopping for new people.
In terms of like where your team spends your time? Like, how do you make a distinction between getting people to your website? Like, I can buy stuff from your website, I can buy stuff from Amazon. Like, how do you make the distinction between which channels you're going to support, which are important, which are less important?
Well, Amazon's an abnormality. I mean, they're the 200 million pound gorilla in a little, and they are what they are. It's some crazy statistic for food that 80% of the searches right now for food items to purchase are actually done on Amazon, not on Google. I mean, because everybody knows you go to Amazon and whatever you want to buy, you can find it there. So they kind of own that for whatever it's worth. That's a whole nother discussion, how they treat the vendors and stuff. We won't get into that today.
Sure.
My own website is there because it's where I can show off really how the product should be looking online, more information about them. I don't worry about my listings being taken down because, salt is antibacterial, which you can't see on Amazon because that means it's a pesticide and they will ban the listing. So,
That's
Amazon.
interesting.
Oh, I got that's one of 50 I got for you from these people.
Right. So basically, there's a diversification opportunity here, so that you're not bound by the constraints of some arbitrary rule by
Yes.
an entity you don't know.
It's just all kinds of arbitrary rules because the robots say, the word antibacterial is banned, so we turn off all your listings. Then you have to peel them and fight them and stuff like that because or some crazy person emails in and says, I bought this and it's expired. They turn off a listing doing, $50,000 a month because the customer says it's expired, yet we sell, 10,000 bags a month of the product and we have, 5,000, 4.5, 5-star reviews. Nobody's complaining, but one competitor complains and they turn off the listing, So right. I mean, hey, Bezos is busy launching rockets. He doesn't care about me. So I mean, it is what it is. So everybody, it's not me. It's not, everybody you talk to who sells on Amazon will tell you the exact same thing. It's a necessary evil and it shouldn't be that way. They should be a partner, not a necessary evil. So that said, our Walmart sales have picked up, I think, like 400, 500% this year over last year. I'm not saying they're any much better to work with, but they're different. Diversification is probably a good thing. Our own sales on the website are doing pretty good. At least with the website, I can do different matches because I can ship it out of here. Everything on Amazon has to be shippable through FBA, basically. So it has to be a lot of pouches and bags and plastic and stuff like this, where on my own website we have glass and much better looking stuff, which I can't do through Amazon because it's not cost effective to put double box, because Amazon opens the box up anyways, takes the item out, and then don't even start me. I mean, that's a whole we can go on for a whole show with that. That
So you
said,
have scale. So Amazon has scale.
100%.
Direct to consumer on your website, you have a lot more freedom and probably lower scale considering you're one company and
Oh, yeah,
Amazon
yeah. My
everywhere.
website is nothing compared to Amazon, but it makes me happy. A lot of my customers go there and they
Mhm.
find the stuff, then they go buy it on Amazon because it's one click checkout and it shows up in one day. I'm not even
Right.
realizing half the time it's shipped from me anyways, but whatever makes the customer happy because Amazon's brainwashed everybody. They have to click the button and get it, which trust me, Amazon's a distribution play that happens to sell product. When
Yeah.
my wife
Right.
can order something and 2 hours later it shows up here at the office. I mean, forget it. The game's over and they won.
Right.
Doesn't mean you have to like it, but the game's over and they won. So now you have to play with their rules and play in their sandbox.
Well, yeah, I mean, the government is really focusing on antitrust across Facebook and Apple and Google and Amazon, so they'll still continue to be the distribution leader, but you
They may
never
have to treat
really know
people
how to
nicely
compete.
eventually. Yes, that is correct.
Exactly, exactly.
We can
But,
hope
I
so.
mean,
There's hope.
y as you know, right, like, communication is
Yeah,
is such a massive opportunity and,
yeah.
going direct to consumer and building that business is massive. So, Brett, ho in the last few minutes here, tell us how people can find you and where they can buy in some of the different channels around, that we might be familiar with.
Um, the best way to find us is either go to spices.com and look at the full assortment of our beautiful product. If you're looking for more of an industrial Amazon thing, go to amazon.com and search for Spice Lab and whatever item you're looking for, and it'll show up there because Amazon doesn't even really have stores properly, and you can't ever come up with a customer base or blog or anything else that actually allows customer interaction because Amazon wants to own the customer completely, and we can't even send a business card to the customers anymore in the packages. So I
Really?
mean, it's literally get a box, nothing else, a box and a packing slip. So preferably spices.com. Because you get the best assortment of things that
Mhm.
we don't sell on Amazon. If you live in the South of the United States, it's Costco, for the big salts and tubs, and we have
Mhm.
4 or 5 other items for Costco and the regional stores down here. We do a bunch of stuff, a lot of private label, which I can't say who we do it for, but we do.
Sure.
We sell a lot of things a year, and some really high end stores we sell it to, and because the stores because we do high end product, we sell to high end stores, like a Costco or these other companies, the private label ones we're doing, and they like that because they're willing to pay more money because we're by far not the cheapest guy out there packing spices, but we're the best
How do you
value.
find private label? So you find private label partners through the trade shows primarily?
Yeah, the trade shows, the private label manufacturing association, and we're there, and probably another 15 spice, 20 10 or 15 spice people are there, or stuff like that are there. You have people, private label and toilet paper. I mean, Kimberly Clark's there and says the private label division, whatever it is, for make the toilet
Sure.
paper. So I mean, literally, you'd be amazing how much stuff's private label nowadays.
So do you have I mean, are there other companies that, like, private label make spices?
Oh, for sure.
And s
We're relatively small.
How do you
Um,
compete with those guys?
Again, the ones
Quality?
where, yeah, well, it's quality. Now, another guy out there, I'm not gonna mention name, but they do the same quality we do, but it's our packaging's better looking. Um, so again, and our pricing's the same or better, but they've been doing it for 25 years. So, you know, it's figuring out what works, and the packaging we have gives us a gigantic advantage. We own all of our own molds for glass. We own a lot of the molds now for PET, the plastic jars, because I couldn't get good quality jars. I just spent 100 grand twice now and bought 2 molds, so I can have a guy in Miami, blow the PET jars for me. They show up 4 days later and they're actually
Right,
perfect, they're round, not
right.
oblong or holes in them or something. I mean,
Mhm,
it's crazy
mhm.
how bad crap is out there. So it's again figuring out what they're missing. And a lot of these, give me an example, a lot of these companies out there can pack tens of thousands of jars per line per day, or even, one guy can do 600 jars a minute. I mean, how's that even possible? Some of this, I mean, it's crazy numbers. So they have these big lines and they can't produce thousands of anything. They got to produce tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of something to even make money at it, because then you have to take the machine down and clean the machine. Because we
Uh,
do a small run, or we have a new machine, we just put a fully automated line that will do 20,000 jars a day, which is, I'm thinking, is awesome. But if I'm McCormick, I got a line to 20,000 jars, the guy says kill it, get rid of it, burn it, it's killing us over there. But 20,000 jars a day. But if we take that line down and clean it between jobs, it takes us an hour and a half to clean the line. So if I'm running 20,000 jars or 2,000 jars, I still have to spend the same hour to
Right.
2 hours cleaning the line. So your cost per jar goes up immensely on these smaller runs, but we're very good at doing that, where a big machine may take even longer to clean. And this big machine is supposed to do a couple hundred jars a minute, let's say, for a decent sized big machine.
Right.
And now it's not running 200 jars a minute for the next hour and a half while they're cleaning the machine and doing allergen testing and waiting for
Mhm.
the swabs to come back, 30 minutes later or whatever it is. So you just lost another, 10,000 jars of production for the hour and a half the machine was down. Where we can, in that same hour and a half, we clean the machine, we're already running something new. So
Right, so your costs are your aggregated costs across the downtime plus the uptime is dramatically lower than the big
for
companies.
doing smaller stuff, they can't run small.
Yeah.
It's just like asking Ford Motor Company, hey, I want to make a custom car and I need, 500 of them a year. It's not practical for them to do it. So
Right.
what happens is big companies, they have to bid on a spice line. Some of the cinnamon sells, 400,000 jars a year, whatever particular store it is.
Mhm.
Where the, whole cumin might sell 12,000 a year, but you have to have the
Mhm.
cumin because you can't have a full spice line when you don't sell the cumin
Right.
or whatever it is. So they still have to make half the spice line they lose money on. 20% of the spice line they kind of break even on, and the other 30% they're killing it because the 30% they're actually making the 20 30,000 jars a month of for that customer, and they can make it. How's McCormick going to run 5,000 jars or 3,000 jars for a program that lasts a year? They can do it, but they have to make the jars, warehouse them, put them in the warehouse. It's a year old before they can
Right.
ship the last jar.
They're just not built for that.
It's not built for it. So
So, Brett,
we're a small guy. If I was 25 times the size or 10 times the size, I probably would not be doing that either. But we're very good at what we do, and we're trying to find the grocery stores that are under 300 or 400 store count, because that's kind of like the perfect sweet spot for us. We don't need the Krogers of the world. Nothing wrong with Kroger. Don't get me wrong, Kroger. If you're out there listening, I'll sell to you. But for, because we have that niche in there, we can do a lot of the stuff for these smaller, medium sized regional stores
Mhm.
that these big companies, can't do and keep the quality as good or better than what they're doing.
Mhm. What's your favorite mix blend right now? And as we wrap up here.
We have a smoked butcher salt and pepper blend that
Mhm.
is just what it says. It's salt, pepper, and smoke. And stuff is stunning. It's addictive. You open the jar and you're like, holy, where have I been all my life?
What's it
And
called on the site? How do I find it?
smoked butcher salt and pepper, I'm pretty sure is what it's called.
Smoked butcher, salt, and pepper.
Yeah,
Alright, I'm gonna check
smoked
that
butcher
out.
salt and pepper.
Alright.
And it's just stunning. And you make your brisket with it, you make your pork with it, you make you put on vegetables, you get a little smoky flavored vegetables. I have a Rex Tech grill, and I love the smoker grill. But you do the brisket, you put this on there as the rub for half a day before you start brisket smoking. And I tell you what, I eat a lot of brisket in my life, and three out of the best 10 briskets I ever had is three of the last seven I ever smoked on my own grill using this rub. So I mean,
Okay, smoked butcher, salt, and pepper.
salt and pepper, yeah.
Yum. Okay, I'm gonna check that out. Brett Cramer, co-founder and president of the Spice Lab. Thanks for being with us today. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much and having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the LA Business Podcast. If you like what we're doing on this podcast, please consider subscribing on Apple or Google Play, leaving a 5-star review, and sharing with your friends. If you have any questions, comments, or recommendations for a guest you'd like to hear on this podcast, please email me, robert@brillmedia.co. Thank you. Have a fantastic day.